So, good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's Business Mastery Live Wednesday, coming to you, of course, live on our weekly webinar. Good to see you. Good to have you with me today. That chill music. Let's go. All right, people. Let's get into it. All right, it's going to be a really straight to the point call. We're going to do our background thing. We're going to get right into it. Tax season is coming up shortly, sooner than you think. And we want to make sure that you're prepared for it. If you're an entrepreneur in this call, in this conversation, you're going to want to know how to set yourself up to win inside of tax season and preparedness for the season coming up. So let's go, man. 10-figure business mastery. This is me, Cheston Bulgin with By the Books Consulting. This is how you reach us. If you ever need any assistance with these topics, you need somebody in your corner to just really bounce some ideas off of, or figure out, well, what the next action would be for you in these areas. You can do that. 888-4BTB now. That's 888-428-2669. You can also reach us on the web at bythebooksconsultants.com or at youraccountingsuperhero.com, or you can reach out to me via email, Cheston at bythebooksconsultants.com. And of course, don't abuse that email. All right. Of course, we do the bookkeeping, tax services, the compliance services. We do the filing and the preparation for taxes. We do advisory in that area so that you're not paying more so than you have to in taxes. Give you some strategies and manage your freedom, wealth, and legacy inside of that. And of course, we have some business coaching and advisory. We just did a boot camp, guys. It was October 8th. And we're looking to do more of these boot camps just to make sure that you as an entrepreneur has access to being able to utilize this software, this technology, one of the technologies that you can use for your business. We want to make sure that you're able to use this to its full capabilities. You want to leverage this thing fully to make sure you take your business to the level you want to take it to and beyond. So we do that by helping you understand how to navigate this thing, what to do with QuickBooks Online, so it's not overwhelming. It's something that you're going to come to and do exactly what you want with it for your business. Many of us as entrepreneurs are not accountants. I just so happen to be, right? But if you're not an accountant type, you really just want to use this software to run your business effectively. You want to deliver certain things inside of that for your customers, for your vendors, for your employees, all your stakeholders. And you want to be a part of this conversation. This is going to be a lifelong conversation inside of developing your use around this software. You can sign up for our membership by going here to advisory.bythebooksconsultants.com/membership to get access to all of our boot camps, trainings, ongoing support for this software. Powerful stuff, guys. You want to make sure that you fully utilize, take advantage of this, because the pricing on this, because the pricing on it is not very high right now. It's only going to go up because we're going to deliver a whole lot in this area for people to be able to take their business to a scalable, high-performing level. Okay, that's what we're intending to do with this platform, is to help you have high performance in your business using this technology. It's never going to be just QuickBooks. There's going to be some things in there to make sure you have action items, things that are practical steps to take to have your business have sure wins, if that makes sense. Okay. All right. So that's that. Now we're going to get into it. Are you prepared? How prepared are you for tax season coming up? We've been in this conversation this quarter. The last quarter of the year is important that we focus, we pivot on making sure everything is tied up for we put that little bow tie on the end of your year. And that's what we mean by tied up. We wrap up the year powerfully, making sure you're set up to keep your hard-earned money when it comes to taxes, and that you're really seeing the end all be all in terms of performance for your business. Where do you stand? How prepared are you? All right, so a quick disclaimer before we get started. The following is for educational purposes only and is not to be considered financial, accounting, or legal advice. Please consult your tax, accounting, and/or legal professional for specific advice. 10-figure business mastery. We have some pillars that we stand on. This sort of the tenets inside of what we're about. And if we abide by these tenets as entrepreneurs, as business owners, then you have a high probability, you and I have a high probability of success. So number one is intentionality, which is mindset mastery. Number two, financial mastery, which is also financial literacy. Number three, structures, or another name for that is system mastery. And last but not least, actions, execution mastery. Okay. Now, we talk about these every week a little bit. I'm not going to get into too much detail this week. We're going to get right into our conversation today. And we're going to be short and to the point with this. Okay. But bottom line, if we have all these working, all these tenets present inside of our operating, inside of who we're being in the day to day, and we're intentionally thinking about these things and delivering on these principles, then you will win. Okay, so preparing for taxes in the tail end of 2023, man, I'm telling you, this year went by so fast, guys. This year, I remember early on we were doing these talks, and I was saying, man, the year is going by fast because it was like January, February, March came around, and we were like, man, blitzing right through 2023. And now we're at the culmination of the year already, it seems. And we want to be prepared. What does that really look like for you and me? Okay. So this is the only thing we're going to talk about today, guys. We're going to talk about this. This is really going to be a short call. Okay. And I want to leave you with some real actionable steps here to take inside of your business. Now, before we get into this part of it, understand that if you don't have the proper record keeping and bookkeeping processes in your business, this is not going to serve you any justice. Financial tracking and reporting is a foundation. All measurements inside of business is a foundation. There is a number story, okay? The numbers do not lie. They always tell the story, and you want to make sure you are capturing that story. They used to have people, like if we read the Bible is really an accounting and a record-keeping process. For those of you who read the Bible or in the Bible or any other historical document, they just keep records of things. They used to keep records of people's birth in the Bible. You know, when people are born, they keep that record. They keep record of, you know, the significant events and what happened along the way. And because they kept record, they could go back and see. They didn't rely on memory. They didn't rely on something that was not reliable. They relied and went back to what has been written. Even you hear about, you know, in the New Testament, they talk about, has it not been written? Has it not been written? Right? Those things are important, and those things stand out for a reason. Because we want to have an accounting of what was. So we want to make sure we're measuring these things. We're actually taking account for these things along the way, so that we'd always come back to see, well, what happened and what was the meaning behind this? What's the lesson to be learned here? Now, I'm saying all that because inside of your bookkeeping and financial tracking is really no different. You want to make sure that you are keeping account to the letter. You're not relying on what you think it might be. You're not saying, okay, you know, I'm sort of, I feel it might be in this area of about, you know, $200,000 that we brought in. I think so. I was on a call with somebody like, man, how did I make money? I was on a call with this person when somebody reached out to me. We just did their cleanup, and they really had it in their mind that they took a loss for that year. It felt like they took a loss, right? They were like, man, we're just spending a whole lot of money. So we cleaned up all the financials, went through every transaction. Come to find out, they didn't lose money. They made money. They were profitable. But they could swear. They just knew. They felt it in their bones that they lost money. I know a lot of us, like whoever's listening to this webinar, if you're on the webinar right now, if you're chiming in from wherever you're chiming in from, you may have had that experience. You may feel as though, you know, all I do is spend money in my business. I'm not really making anything with it. And I've heard that said by entrepreneurs on multiple occasions. They, I feel like I'm not really making it. This business is not doing anything for me. And it comes from us feeling as though we're putting in a lot of effort, a lot of work, spending all this money. And at the end of the day, we're not keeping track of it. We're just going by what we feel about it. There's a lot of effort that you're putting in. You're not really getting the result that you feel as though you want to get. And being in that position puts us outside of reality. So the record keeping processes are important so that you're always in reality. You can come back to something, even good, bad, ugly, whatever you want to interpret it as. You can always come back to what is so. Like if you put that on paper, if you record that, if you have a system, if you have a process to track this down to the penny, you can always come back to what is so and not rely on any interpretation of that or any feeling of where you are. You just come back to the truth. This is what it is, the fact of the matter. Super important to make sure you have all these processes in place, or nothing else that stems from that point on. It's sort of like, the fruit from the poisonous tree type thing. Like anything else that comes after that is meaningless unless we have the proper, bookkeeping and reporting processes. Hopefully I've delivered on the emphasis of that right now and what I'm saying, because it is super important, all right, to make sure you have those processes in place with integrity, okay? Now, if we do have that in place with integrity, we can do these things here. We can do something called a year-end review. We can look at what we have done up until now, so far, and lean on this information that we have with confidence inside of a year-end review, okay? So what are we reviewing? Well, we're going to review our financials at the end of the year. So it's coming down to the wire. We're in the month of October right now. You have a little more than 2 months left before the end of the year, okay? So as we come toward that conclusion, these are the things that we want to take a look at. All right, your profit and loss statement. Most people know what a profit and loss statement is, all right, especially if you're in this group. We have so many ranges of entrepreneurs, people who have just gotten started with business and never really looked at their financial statements to the point of understanding. We have people who have been in business for several years that have a basic understanding of these things. And then we have all the way up to people who have mastery over these level of financial, on this level of financial literacy. They understand how to read the number story to a high degree. So there are a broad range of people, entrepreneurs inside this conversation. And I want to make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to understanding a year-end review and what the financial statements are and what we're looking at. So most people understand what a profit and loss statement is. Profit and loss statement basically says this is how much income we brought in. This is how much we had to spend in order to generate this income. And after all is said and done, this is how much I have left over from the business activity. Really, it's straight performance inside of business. Sales, cost of sales, overhead, net profit. Okay, we want to see exactly what that is. Now, there's a lot of things in between. We want to understand, well, what are the impacts of all those things in between? There's an example here of a trucking company profit and loss statement. And we have the revenue here, total truck receipts. And then we have expenses. So you got fuel expenses, insurance expense, maintenance expense, office expenses, payroll. They have scales. Most companies outside of trucking won't have scaling expenses. Supplies, they even have hashed out here for tires in its own category. Now, if we keep going down the line, we'll see all these expense items. And these are basically, there's another terminology for these things that we're looking at. They're called chart of accounts, right? We have income chart of accounts. We have expense chart of accounts. We have balance sheet chart of accounts, like asset chart of accounts. We have liability chart of accounts. We have an equity chart of accounts, okay? So we're looking at, performance-wise, we're looking at income and expense chart of accounts through this process. And I don't want to get too technical with you, but the development of those chart of accounts really comes about from, well, what is it that your business does? and what type of money flow do you bring in, like revenue wise, and how does that money flow out of your business? Like, how do we track that? What are the typical accounts that we're going to use to track the inflow and outflow of my business on a profit and loss statement? Now, these things, they want to be in place before we get to this year-end review process, right? We specifically designed this for our business, so we know exactly where our money is coming from and where it's going to. Okay, so we want to make sure that these are hashed out. Now, if you haven't taken the time to develop this to a high degree of integrity, which means that your transactions are treated a specific way intentionally, like what you're going to spend money on, you've already decided. And if you go throughout your operation, you discover other things, you want to actually identify what those other things are, like not really step over those things, but bring them to the surface so that you have clarity on what those things are that are going to be impacting your business money flow wise. So for example, you may have started your business and you're going to have office expenses, you're going to have travel expenses, you have payroll, that you're going to pay for utilities, that you're going to have marketing and advertising costs, these things, right? And you're going to pay for supplies. And then that you have your main revenue source is going to be sales, right? You do a lot of sales, like product sales, and you have cost of goods sold, right? So you're going to have things that you purchase, like in terms of inventory, and you have things that you're going to sell. So these things. Let's say all of these things, right? But then you go about operating and you discover, man, I wasn't really expecting this to pay money on meals like this, right? But I really have to. I really have to spend money on meals, because if I don't, then we're not going to be able to run the business the way that I want to run it, because we have to go out and meet people and have these conversations. And it's usually going to be over a luncheon. We need to invite a few people out, and then we cover the tab, we cover the bill for that meal, so that we can have an effective meeting and effective lunch and get to the desired result. But we didn't really know that was going to be the case before. And maybe we're going to have a few meals here and there, but we didn't know that's going to be this much of an impact. So now you want to start putting together, okay, how are we going to treat this? Now, what are we going to coin this up as? We need to maybe add another chart of account here to track our meals, but how are we going to track that distinctly? What is it going to be called? It's going to be called meals with clients. Is it going to be called travel meals? Is it going to be, promotional meals? What is this really? Right. So you want to have that thought process anytime you have something new in your flow, your money flow, your chart of account flow. If that makes sense. Okay. So that happens. Now, when you have all of those things put together throughout the year, you come to this point, you want to start looking at your profit and loss statement. What was really impacting my business? All right. Is it really the bottom line here? Like, am I really making this much money at this stage of the game? If I'm making this much money, man, is there a way for me to deduct anything else to make sure that I'm not going to be overexposed to taxes? I want to start looking at things, looking at opportunities right now. This is a perfect month. October is like the perfect month to look into maybe investing in other assets, like maybe equipment, so you can take advantage of depreciation, right? We still have some time left in bonus depreciation for the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. So you want to start looking at the things that are are available to you inside of your choices based on your year-end review processes. You want to be here right now in October looking at these things. Okay. So you can have access to more decisions. Maybe you want to put some more money away into retirement. If you're a solopreneur, maybe you have an S Corp set up, maybe you have your retirement account set up and you put some money in your retirement, but you have not yet maxed it out. And now you're seeing that you have a lot of profitability, and you've looked at your own personal financial needs. You don't really need this extra cash inside of your personal financial operation. So maybe you want to put this money away into retirement so that it's not going to be taxed. It's going to be deferred until a later date, until after you retire. Okay. Those are the things. Maybe you want to move money into a Roth account. Maybe you haven't put your funds into a Roth. You have this extra cash. You've already decided, hey, I'm going to pay taxes on this amount, but I really want to have this extra cash on hand that I don't need personally. I want to put it into a Roth account. And then make sure I have a strategy there to kind of build my assets toward retirement tax-free. Okay. Those are the things that we want to consider here. Like, what is the performance in your business? Like, do we do well? How well do we do? We did exceedingly well. Now what can I do to maintain a path to wealth, and legacy? What are some smart moves right now? Smart money moves. Okay. You also want to take a look at your balance sheet. Like, balance sheets give us really insight into how healthy the business is. If you can't read a balance sheet, then you want to make sure you have somebody in your corner who has a skill set to read a balance sheet, because it gives a lot of good information. It's like going to the doctor's office and they're reading your vitals. Like, that's what a balance sheet does. It's like the check-in. It's the vitality of the business. How healthy is it? Okay. So you'll be able to read those things. You want to see, okay, well, am I upside down right now? How much equity is the company developing? How liquid am I? What's my liquidity ratios? And what exactly am I actually getting out of the asset base that I have? My ROI. What's my inventory doing? How long does it take me to collect on inventory? I call it inventory turnover, right? Some things like that, the balance sheet can give us really good access to understand, well, how healthy is the business, and are there some tweaks needed before we move into the next year? So, purposefully, okay. Now, number one, we are talking about tax preparation, making sure that we're ready for taxes. The other thing is, we're going into a new year. A lot of us have fiscal years that begin in the same time as a calendar year. So if you're coming to the end of your year, well, what are some things that we can look at to improve upon the next year? Every single year that we take a look at what it is that we've been doing so far, like all the systems and things that we put in place, where have we been spending money, and what's been giving us the return on the money that we spend, like the investments that we make. And we choose which way we're going to go in the next year. Right now, we're choosing a whole lot of things in terms of systems and processes that are not going to be the same that we had this past year in 2023. They're going to be different moving forward in 2024 because we've taken a look. Okay, but that's the access to being able to improve your business year after year after year after year. And you want to be here in this year-end review process, all right, review process, to make those choices available to you and to decide how that's going to go. All right, hopefully that makes sense. All right, so you want to understand how to read a balance sheet. You want to have, again, financial literacy in this area. If you do not, people like me, like I'm available for that stuff for you. All right, if you need to reach out and have that review so that you can understand what's going on, get on the call. Okay, invest a little bit of money to have somebody get on a call with you and go over your financials so that you could have access to the next steps. All right, it is that important. It's that crucial. Okay. Now, the other thing is, okay, like, you want to take a look at, where do you stand tax-wise? What have you paid so far in taxes versus what you're projected to owe in taxes? We call it, like, this is a reconciliation of what you're going to owe in taxes. Okay. If you're doing a good job throughout the year, then come tax time, you're not really going to owe anything. If you're doing a really good job throughout the year of maintaining what you, like, your quarterly estimates, if you're, sole proprietor, if you have an S corp, same thing. It's like you want to make sure that your payroll is includes all your income that you made throughout the year, so that when you get your payroll deducted, your taxes deducted from your payroll, rather, it's covering you throughout the year. Those things you want to take a look at. Well, how much did you actually pay in taxes up until now? Are you ahead? Are you behind? What's going to be the next thing? A lot of the people that we work with, they're in S corps. They're paying themselves too much. And paying themselves too much means that you're overspending in taxes. Like, there's a reasonable wage, and once you go beyond reasonable, then it doesn't make sense to have an S corp anymore. Right? You might as well be a sole proprietor, because you're not really getting the benefits of, reducing your self-employment tax. You want to take a look at these things so that am I overspending here? So sometimes we make calls and people say, look, man, you don't need to pay yourself anymore. You've actually paid yourself enough for the year. But you want to know when those points are, and you're going to know by specifically looking at what we're talking about here today in the year-end review. Okay. All right. Let's bring this thing to a close, guys. I'm going to wrap this thing up. I'm hoping that you've been with me so far inside of this conversation. This wants to be a simple process for you. And it wants to be a process that has integrity, which means that take the time to do it. Take the time to look at it. Really, those people who are able to have that type of integrity to do the things that they know to do without any reasons or excuses, these are the people that actually get out of life the most they can get out of it. So I'm asking you to choose to be that person, choose to be that entrepreneur, choose to be that business owner that's going to have the integrity to take these actions and know exactly where you stand and make choices from here moving forward to set yourself up for sure wins in business. All right. With that being said, it's been great being with you today. I will see you next week on a Business Mastery Live webinar. All right. Take care, guys. Talk to you later. Bye bye.